Fair use. Time of Jacob's trouble upon us. Apostle Tahar teaching at this moment.
Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Bashem, Rakakabash. Shalom to the 144,000, the rest of you left out there. Shalom to you all. Anyway, I'm going to title this video This is a question that I asked chat. I asked chat about the cruel Lord. So the topic of this video will be GMS asked the chat who is the cruel Lord in Isaiah 19 verse 4. So I put it up, but I didn't read it. I'll just skim through it. Then I'll add a question. Because in this case, the cruel Lord has to be one man.
Yep.
Not the Antichrist. The Antichrist is not one man. Anyway, let me do this. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so this is put up by, I didn't even watch this whole video. It's put up by Friends of the Prophets, entitled WT, man, you know what that means? WT sees Jacob's trouble, but other camps don't. But we're definitely in the beginning stages of Jacob's trouble, and it's going to get worse out there. Anyway, I'm just going to let this, and I urge you to watch the whole video. I watched up until right about here, so I'm going to definitely, when I get a chance, watch the whole video. Let the rest of the video play. You know what? Let me do this. Let me set this up. This is fair use, fair use, fair use. I'm only giving my criticism of this particular video. And this is kind of all over the place. Okay, it says white man sends warning. Everyone's dreaming, seeing visions about Jacob's trouble. Okay, put it by Saints of Jersey. She sees the same. Okay, twins hang out. That's them. These are the twins. They're Hamites. They're straight up Hamites. You know. Anyway, but they do good videos. To Hamitic sisters, twins. Anyway, I'm just gonna let it play. Fair use, fair use, fair use. Then I want to go into Isaiah, the cruel Lord. See what chat has to say about that. Then I'm going to ask if the chat doesn't mention Trump at all. I'm going to say, could this be Donald Trump? So let's go.
Donald Trump will be the last president.
Which we say that we believe that he'll be the last president, meaning his term ends. He came in 2024. He was sworn in. What's the other word? Inaugurated, which goes back. That's what they did to Roman Caesars or emperors. Roman emperors. They were inaugurated, and he was inaugurated. And we here at GMS, we've been referring to him as one of the Caesars. We strongly believe that he's Nero. When you do a bio, you look up Nero, early life, what he did, and how his life ended. Then you read what we know about. We don't got to read up about Trump. We already know Trump. We don't got to read nothing. We're living in the time of Trump. And when I say the last president, it either the Most High going to take this place out before he's out of term, or he dies, or whatever the case may be. Because it could go further. Because he been talking. As soon as he became president, he said, "Look, I'm going to be president for a third term," which that's not even constitutional. And recently he said, "I'm going to be president for the fourth term." So we're talking about he is the king of Babylon. He's navigating around these laws. Pretty much you got in in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, Minneapolis. That's martial law right there. You had martial law during the was that Obama? During the Obama term, when he was in office for 2 terms, 8 years. You had the situation in Boston with the 2 Chetnian, I guess that's how you call it, from Chechnya. And that was a big deal. And we believe that was a false flag. So, you got all kind of, I'm sorry, the point that I was getting at, that situation with those 2 Chetnian fellows, what they did was, there was a martial law. Everything was locked down. They were telling people to stay in their houses, and the military was going. They would bang on your door. They could go in your house and check, because they were checking for these guys, see if they hide in the house. Which we know that that's all BS. Or we're gonna go from house to house, from door to door. Come on now. But they were actually banging on doors. The governor, which he was a Jake, he didn't do nothing about it. So that situation, that bombing at that marathon, Boston Marathon, that whole bombing thing. But you know how we think. I'm going to tell you how we think. Everything is suspect to us. Anyway, let me go ahead and let it play.
Trump will have another term. Those are the rumors. But the whispers go deeper. Not just that Trump could be the last president, but that governments themselves may be dissolved.
Meaning there's going to be one government. There's never end to government. That's the word when you look up the word anarchy. Anarchy means without government. And governments always form. But you need laws and you need order. People just can't do what the hell they want to do.
What comes after is already on the table. They call it post-nation governance. Systems we live in are being stress tested, and what comes next will feel wild, but it's already underway. Something doesn't add up. Governments around the world aren't just failing at random. It looks too orchestrated.
And that's what we've been saying. All these major events, you call them black swan events, it looks staged. There's too many things happening back to back, really simultaneously. I believe that this storm, they said this is some news people say, or somebody said it, that this is the worst storm, this is going to be the worst storm in the history of, keeping records, as far as weather is concerned. They said it's going to be, some of them say, oh, this is similar to the one in 2006 in New York or whatever. But some of them are actually saying that this you can't compare this storm to any other. So we're going to have to wait and see. I've been through storms. I'm from New York. When you get a major snowstorm, that it snows for a straight day or 2 days. But the last major storm, it snowed for 2 days straight hard. And I had a 4x4 at that time, so but it was still buried. But dig halfway through, but I used a 4x4 and it got me out. If it was regular, rear wheel or front wheel, I would not be able to get there. I would have to wait another day or so. But we're used to that. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see. And like I said, I believe that's they have a weather modification system. That's their magic. That's their magic.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel.
You can clearly see that these are 2 Hamites. You can clearly see that they might be Jake my foot. Them are 2 Hamites.
In case you're new here, my name is Maren. And I'm Maureen. Right. So guys, we came across a white creator on TikTok, and what he says is gonna be sending chills down your spine. Why am I saying this? He's gonna be sending a very strong warning to Americans, and not just Americans, but
the focus is on America. Everything that's happening is because of America. The whole world is seeing what America's going to do next, what Nero's going to do next. Let me go ahead and check the silver price. Well, it's getting up there. It's getting up there. Come on now. Okay, staying steady. It's 103. I'll give you a second here. And I told y'all to get silver. Told y'all. That's real money. Okay, let's come on back. Over here.
But he's gonna be talking about why the world is looking the way it is, starting with America, right? So, does his words spell conspiracy theory, or do you think he is onto something? Let's watch this video and then we come back and talk about it. You can definitely let us know what you think about the episode, and also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel. But let's watch and listen carefully.
Something doesn't add up. Governments around the world aren't just failing at random. It looks too orchestrated. And if that's the case, then this is dangerous info. I mean, look around. Energy grids collapsing, food systems stumbling, parliaments in constant deadlock. Leaders suddenly look incapable of solving even basic problems.
Right, exactly. Shit is happening. There's a wait a minute. This shit happened? You mean to tell me they weren't up on this? The fires in LA. The major fires all over the place. And they realized that when the firemen came to get water, there was no water. You know, it's amateur night. But the average person don't see it. They don't see it come along. We're in the time of Jacob's trouble. Right? Like the title says. But other camps don't. I believe they do. They can see it. They better see it. They'd be stupid if they don't.
That's not just bad luck. That's stagecraft. The elites are trying to abolish governments. The reason why governments around the world look incapable in the past few years, it's not random. Not at all. Fact. In places like the World Economic Forum, the UN's development programs and private think tanks, they are already talking about post-nation governance. A future where borders...
Let me go ahead and look. You're going to mention 50-minute cities, which goes with the mark of the beast. You're going to have 50-minute cities. I'm sorry, I don't want to look that up. Let me just pull that back. Forgive me, y'all.
World Economic Forum, the UN's development programs and private think tanks, they are already talking about post-nation governance.
Post-nation governance, meaning
Government after next, like Jade Helm. Means army after next, by the way. UN taking over. You know, the 15,000 soldiers that are from Russia, etc. Foreign armies.
Or post-national governance refers to a shift where political authority, decision-making, and economic processes move beyond the traditional sovereign nation state to global. That's why we say the whole planet will be chipped.
Yep.
Not going to be the United States. That people in the United States had to be chipped. So people say, no, I'm leaving the country. It's going to be the whole planet.
Yep. It's a new world order.
IGEU. Right. That's what is that? 28 nations, European nations that make up the EU. NATO is another one. Or non-state entities. Well, you have that with the UN. It signifies that national borders are no longer the primary boundary for addressing issues like trade, climate, or technology. In other words, a one world government. And that's going to lead to the chip. You're going to realize that we were always right about the chip. The technology is already there. It's a matter of getting the people to accept it. Okay, so let me come back over here. Where am I? Okay, here we go.
A few future where borders and politicians fade, replaced by algorithmic management. Smart cities run by code, resources distributed.
Let me look up smart cities. Let me see. Smart cities and the Internet of Everything. Smart cities utilize the Internet of Things. They didn't say everything. The Internet, the IOE, Internet of Everything, means you're going to get the chip. And I go and I open that up when I do my lessons. Let me go ahead and read this again. I'm gonna leave this up. Matter of fact, I took a snapshot of this, so it's always going to be in my computer. Can the Internet of Everything, meaning microchips in the body? Yes, the Internet of Everything, IOE, can include microchips implanted in the human body, specifically as part of an emerging, more specialized concept called the Internet of Bodies. While the Internet of Things refers to connecting inanimate objects to the Internet, the IOE, the Internet of Everything, takes this further to connect people through what? Microchip implanted in human bodies. So they're telling you straight up now that their plan is to go from IoT, Internet of Things, to IOB, Internet of Bodies, or IOE, Internet of Everything. As soon as you get that chip, you're a part of that network. We've been telling y'all that. We've been telling y'all. We've been arguing with ISUPK, IUIC. What are they going to say when it comes to pass? Because it is coming to pass. Thus saith the scriptures. Revelation 13:16-18. It's talking about an embargo. Come on. It's talking about sin in all of its forms. And the beast was able to speak. Nate showed you a picture of Caesar Borgia. Then he showed you a clip from the movie, and he was able to speak. Then he showed you a clip from a movie called The Greatest Story Ever Told, starring Max von Sydow. I say it like we call Max von Sydow. Max von Sydow. Also, not her. Damn, what is this actor's name? Sidney Poitier. He played the Canaanite, supposed to be a Canaanite. He was a Jake that carried the cross. But no, the Lord couldn't carry it. So that's like the best, supposed to be the best Jesus movie out there. You know? Anyway. Let's come on back, I'm sorry. Like I said, watch this whole thing. I keep cutting into it.
By digital overseers. AI not just assisting government, but being the government. Now, AI governance in itself isn't evil. It could mean fairness, efficiency, decisions made without human corruption. But only if it was neutral. Open code, public servers, oversight by truth, not profit. But that's not what's being prepared. Right now the servers belong to corporate giants. The algorithms are written by private labs. Oversight? Nobody. Which means the people would be trading fraud governments for something worse. A control system you can't vote out, can't question, can't even see. Fact. The EU has already passed laws for AI oversight boards. Fact. The UN's 2030 agenda speaks of automated monitoring of resources and populations. Fact. Defense departments are testing predictive governance models as we speak. The collapse of trust in governments isn't an accident, it's a setup. The replacement isn't democracy reborn. It's governance by machine, owned by the same few who hollowed out the old system. Everyone thinks the future is about innovation. AI, smart cities, green energy. But that's the cover story. The real future is about reducing the human surplus without a single bullet fired. And the system that is being built. And
this storm is going to kill. There's going to be people that's going to die in a storm. There's going to be people that's going to want to go out in the car and not listen to local government. They're going to get caught out there. You got homeless people living in cars. What is the government doing for them? You got homeless people living in, you got people living in vans, you got people living in cars. And, you know, you got a car, you put the heat on, and the snow covers everything on the car, including the tailpipe. You know, you die by, you know, the gases that build up in your car.
Makes it look like progress. In the old world, humans were assets. More people meant more labor, more soldiers, more taxpayers. But technology flipped the equation. When automation does the work, people become liabilities. They consume resources and they produce nothing. From a corporate state perspective,
What was it? Henry Kissinger said he would use the term useless eaters.
Yep.
But he referred to it as countries. Like we got to eliminate, you know, half of the population of the people of India because they're taking up too many resources. Useless eater.
they are dead weight on the balance sheet.
Hands are useless eaters. They're gremlins. They're straight up gremlins. As Hillary Clinton, inside joke, as Hillary said, these super predators, and they got mad at her for saying that. She wasn't lying. She wasn't lying. You got super YNs, they call them. YNs are super predators. So that was the first time a politician told the truth. She said we got to do something about, back, what was that, 2000? She said we got to do something about these super predators. And that was code for YNs. They serve no purpose but to destroy. They're like Terminators.
Now, what happens to liabilities in a system? They are minimized, quietly, efficiently. You don't announce population reduction. You don't draft policies that say, time to eliminate 800 million people. You design the environment so people self-select out of life. First, you control food economics. Make real nutrition a luxury. Flood markets with
like organic,
hyper-processed calories. Why? Cheap to make, addictive to consume, and lethal over time. Obesity, diabetes, cancers. It's slow-motion euthanasia disguised as personal choice.
You say euthanasia. That means good death. That means, well, they do it in Canada. You can. The doctor says, you know, this is terminal. You got cancer. You got 6 months to live. I know you're in pain. We can give you, you know, pain, you know, a medication for the pain. But we suggest that you kill yourself, and we'll assist you in doing that. And that's already going on in Canada. If you don't believe me, look it up. So they want to get rid of people. Like I said, I believe this storm is man-made. I never heard of such that's going to affect 2/3 of the people of the United States. It says, what is it, 200 million people. The population of this country is 350 million. We're talking 200 million people are going to be affected by this storm.
And then you privatize survival systems. Hospitals, medicine, insurance. Turn health into a product, and when the bill comes and you can't pay, nature takes its course. No violence, no fingerprints. Meanwhile, you flood culture with distractions. War headlines, influencer drama, ideological cage matches, so no one notices the algorithm that decides who thrives and who quietly disappears. People think they are arguing politics, but in reality, they are debating inside the zoo enclosure, while the zookeeper holds the keys to their lifespan.
Yep, and Trump is a zookeeper. And I suggest watching the rest of this on your own. You know, this is, you know, Pulse Tahar's video. Edomite man says the time of Jacob's trouble will be a technocratic world. You know, a world in which they control, where every man is chipped. You know, and has a device tracking their every movement. You know, the former President Biden said, can a microscopic tag be used to track someone's every movement? And you will rule on that, mark my words. Meaning that they are going to make a rule, you know. And we believe that this last Trump is that man that's going to make a move to where everybody is going to have it. You know, but it's a worldwide move. So basically the U.S. will be totally cut out of everything. And a new world order will arise, right? Because the old world order is when the U.S. ruled. But now they're looking to eliminate that to bring in a new governance, right? And everybody's fighting for that governance. Thus, World War III, the technocratic world that, you know, where there'd be an elimination down to 500 million. Remember the Georgia Guidestones, which mysteriously fell a few years ago, right? But that they would depopulate the world to 500 million. And this storm of the century, well, you know, that's just kind of helping to narrow it down. Shalom, first and foremost, like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash. Double honors the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teachers of truth and sincerity, and shout out to the Akims out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaim this truth. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash, Barakatum. So this king of Babylon was looked to be babbling full at the summit, at the World Economic Summit. After Donald Chump spoke at the World Economic Forum in Davos this week, the obligatory headline term was humiliation. Lonely Trump, humiliated as major allies refused to be bullied, was one of the two Daily Beast stories on the theme. The other being Chump 79 croaks through peace grift speech after 48 hours of ritual humiliation under the tag Board of Peace. So they're just pretty much making fun of this guy because, you know, he has a lot of things. He's choking on his own vomit. You know, he's spewing out all his shit. But really, everybody sees how foolish shit he really is. MSN Now chortled over his humiliating ramble while Chris Hayes declared him isolated and humiliated. You know, coverage of Trump long ago divulged into homage to Pee-wee's Playhouse when comic Paul Rubens would get a secret word from Conky the robot in each show after audiences would shout in unison at every mention of it. I remember being in a room of stoned teenagers shouting place at the TV in 1986, and like everything else, so, you know, Chump will take the Donald for America, right? You know, that's why he was placed where he is, because we know that this POS, you know, was originally placed here, you know, just for that, you know. So, you know, like everything else, so we see it for what it is, and this is
That's
from
my
it.
name, Cherry. Don't wear it out.
Pee-wee, I have a question.
What's that?
What's today's secret word?
Ooh, interesting question. Let's go and ask Conky.
Conky 3000, ready to assist you, Pee-wee.
Good morning, Conky. What's today's secret word? Today's secret word is fun. Now you all remember what to do whenever anyone says a secret word, right? That is so correct. For the rest of the day, whenever anybody says a secret word, scream really loud. Ready? Let's try it. Hey, Cherry, how's it going?
I'm having fun.
You look like you're having fun.
I am having fun.
Great work, everybody. Really fun.
So, like everything else, so, you know, it's just, you know, Donald Trump was humiliated, right? Because he's been having fun, as this will go into as well. You know?
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy.
Yeah.
It is what the WEF has stood for.
That's the old world order. They need a new one.
Offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
What a douche, man. But nonetheless, though, you can see, though, that, you know, they're just talking about the fact that, okay, well, what do they have to stand on, right? I mean, he's fucked off every ally, right, by raising tariffs. So they're kind of laughing at him. He's the laughing stock, of the World Economic Forum. And it's hilarious to see. Chump weighs imposing total oil blockade against Cuba in bid to topple government. And like everything else, though, Trump is to take the Donald for Babylon. Okay? And it is fucking funny to watch, man. The fact is, though, is that here it is, America at its greatest ego. I mean, what better spokesperson than Donald Trump himself, to speak on behalf of America. They think that they're the greatest of all time. It's the greatest place on earth to live. I mean, how many fucking times have you heard it, right? But like everything else, so you find out, wait a minute, hold on, you don't have to pay for health care in Canada? These people ain't impressed to pay for health care, that the government pays for health care? You're finding out that this is not the greatest place to live. Government doesn't take care of you, doesn't help you at all if you're struggling. But other governments do. That's why they toppled Libya's government, because, did you know that if you were to finance a house in Libya, that the government would actually give you $30,000, government tax-free, and to help you to buy your first home. So the Libyans were doing pretty good. That's why, they overthrew Muammar Gaddafi. Not to mention, he wanted to trade outside the U.S., which was a no-no. Following the kidnapping of Venezuela President Maduro, the White House reportedly believes the Cuban government is ready to fall. So you're weighing in on how they're going to topple Cuba. White House discussed imposing total blockade against oil imports to Cuba as part of an effort to promote regime change in the nation. Secretary of State Rubio is behind the proposal, according to the sources. U.S. President Chump stated last week that the U.S. would end Venezuela's shipments of oil to Cuba, which account for 60% of the island's national oil consumption. Havana has sought to replace subsidized Venezuelan oil with purchases from Mexico at higher market. Well, he plans to go after Mexico too. So, hey, King of Babylon, doing what he does best, right? Giving you this idea that it's America first, but within all that, are you doing pretty good? Or are you still begging on the streets? Are you being oppressed by the fucking pigs who have nothing better to do than to harass you? Because the pigs only protect the rich. See, Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about you. You should have known that in the 80s. That pretty much, though, he's the one that imposed curfews in Central Park. He's the one that pretty much built the big towers, the Chump Towers, and doesn't give a shit about the poor. His places are only for the rich. Well, who do you think his model was? Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan definitely proved that he was only for the rich. And the poor can fuck off and die. 2 killed in U.S. strike against Eastern Pacific. I saw another U.S. boat strike. American terrorists carried out first known attack on alleged drug vessel since Maduro's capture. The U.S. military conducted another strike against alleged drug trafficking boat in Eastern Pacific Ocean. So he's just continuing to terrorize people. This terrorist. The attack marks the first known strike against alleged drug boats since the U.S. abducted Venezuela's leader, Maduro, on the 3rd of January. At least 117 people have been killed in the strikes on suspected drug boats as part of the U.S. campaign launched in September and dubbed Operation Southern Spear. So, like everything else, though, Pete Hegseth, the fucking douche, very proud of his accomplishments, because, okay, bomb the shit out of you, because that's what they do, is terrorize, I mean, who can speak against Babylon, right? But, like everything else, though, while that's going on, you got this going on in Ukraine, right? And Russia's showing its superiority over Ukraine, that Ukraine doesn't have a leg to stand on, and the U.S. is looking to back out of that anyways, which is another part of the EU, the UN NATO hating the whore, not to mention his ambitions about Greenland. And the tariffs he keeps on raising, right?
The previous day, January 22nd, was marked by a series of significant political developments. On the sidelines of the World Economic Forum at Davos, U.S. President Donald Trump met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The closed-door talks lasted less than an hour. The absence of a press conference after the meeting, as well as how briefly the negotiations lasted, indicate trends that bode poorly for Ukraine. On the night of January 23rd, Russian-American talks were held in Moscow. Vladimir Putin, Yuri Ushakov, and Kirill Dmitriev participated on the Russian side. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Josh Grunenbaum, a representative of the U.S. General Services Administration, participated on the American side. The results of all the diplomatic activity over the past day was the launch of a trilateral U.S.-Russia-Ukraine working group in the UAE. The main talks are scheduled for January 23rd and 24th. Nevertheless, fighting continues amid the Ukrainian conflict. The Russian army achieved a major tactical success south of Volchansk. Assault units entered the southern part of Kravskoye. The remaining Ukrainian units in the settlement were surrounded. Their only chance for evacuation was to cross the Seversky Donets River. Given the current weather conditions, this operation is likely to fail. On January 23rd, Semenovka, which is located south of Liman, was captured. The Russian command may try to build on its success in this section of the front. The most likely scenario is a further attack on Verkhnya Pisarevka. That is where the only bridge across the river in the area is located. The most intense fighting on the front line in the Slavyansk area was observed on the southern outskirts of Konstantinovka. The Russian army brought in additional aircraft to strike targets in the city. The use of FAB-3000 super heavy aerial bombs was noted. A relatively new section of the front has emerged in the Dobraya area. Following the fall of Pokrovsk, Konstantinovka became the largest city under Ukrainian control in this sector. On January 23rd, Russian troops entered the outskirts of Belitskoye. South of there, the former Zaporozhye mine came under control of the Russian armed forces. West of Pokrovsk, Russian assault troops began fighting for control of Novopodgorny. This settlement is located in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The most likely direction for further advancement is Myashyova, an important road junction in the area.
So, like everything else, though, as you can see, though, pretty much being humiliated, Ukraine doesn't have a leg to stand on, and their only ally is, pretty much the EU nations, because Babylon the Great has abandoned it. ISIS detains 2-year-old girl, sends her to Texas despite court order. ISIS detained a 2-year-old girl and her father in Minneapolis before sending her on a plane to Texas in violation of a federal court order. Minneapolis City Councilor member Chavez reported Thursday on social media that ISIS had taken the 2-year-old girl and her father into custody. Spokesman for the Department of Homeland Security confirmed the detention, identifying the pair as Elvis Joel Inchevia and his daughter Chloe Villeses. Court records and statements from the family's lawyers describe a frightening scene. As the father and daughter arrived on Thursday, ISIS entered in their backyard and driveway without warrant, according to Kira Kelly, one of the family's attorneys. One agent smashed the glass window of the father's car while the toddler was inside. So very violently took him. By great violence was this place, as they call it, conquered. But really, it was just violence against people that were at peace. This so-called white man, the Edomite, came in and fucking destroyed all villages, burned them, and used everything they could, would poison everything just to kill them, and then had illegal terrorists, aka settlers, come in, and that was worse than Gaza. So it makes sense as to what they're doing in Gaza when you think about who the Edomite is, who Amalek really is, because Amalek was behind the entire trade. The trade of who? The Israelites, which we were not supposed to drink of that cup, but we surely drunk it. House passes $839 billion defense bill bursting with pork. You know, which, and this is pretty much critiquing the fact that, you know, the Department of War, you know, pretty much gets a whole huge chunk. House of Representatives on Thursday approved $838.7 billion fiscal 2026 defense spending bill. You mean Department of War. Moving one of the largest appropriations measures in U.S. history towards the final passage in the Senate in a 348 to 88 vote that crossed party lines. This total exceeds the Pentagon's original FY 2026 budget request by $8.4 million, but still falls far short of the more than $50 billion in additional funds for the Defense Department sought after submitting its budget to Congress. The fiscal conservatives and critics of Washington's military spending consensus, those discrepancies signal deep structural problems in defense budgeting. In other words, they're running out of funds. And we're still closely approaching that shutdown, you know, over these budgets. So like everything else, though, you know, panic buying has begun over the storm of the century, which is, you know, as Apostle Dahar says, is being done deliberate. We definitely know what Esau does, and this is a way of depopulating as well. So they want to get everything down to 500 million.
Hey everybody, Josh Sears in World Alternative Media here, and there are intense, historic winter storms happening in the United States. You know me, I immediately assume
it's going to be a long, dark winter
going on. But nonetheless, I'm seeing things like this out of Zero Hedge. Massive winter storm puts 230 million Americans at risk as panic buying begins. If you're younger than 40 years old, it says, then you may be experiencing the worst winter weather of your lifetime, depending upon where you are over the next 10 to 14 days. Meteorologist Ryan Mao warned on X as Winter Storm Fern and a dangerous polar blast line up to deliver what could be soon a historic winter storm event across the South, Midwest, and Northeast of the lower 48 from Friday through Monday. We're hearing a lot about this lately. We're talking about Texas. We're already seeing snow in Florida. And this is all as people at the World Economic Forum talk about the rising temperatures around the world. Fox Weather reports that Texans are already beginning to panic buy food and other supplies as the winter event could lead to travel delays and power grid risks involving the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. Fresh on residents' minds is the 2021 catastrophic ERCOT grid collapse. Now, all this is by design, my friends. This is all about pulling us into the World Economic Forum's technocracy, their great reset, as they say. And we're seeing this as insane storms hit Russia, the likes of which we've never seen before. Now, there are a lot of AI images, like these massive snowdrifts covering buildings. Those aren't real. However, we're still talking about many, many feet, in some cases meters, of snow in a historic storm. And what happens when people are not prepared? We reported on this before. Now it's archived right now, but on Zero Hedge, Arm Yourself, persecuted former FBI specialist urges Americans to stock up on food and prepare for hardship because this is coming. And they want people dependent. And not to mention that, they're also controlling a lot of the foods on the shelves, from mRNA to cloned meat entering the Canadian food supply without anyone knowing about it. They don't have to label it. The Canadian government is asking people to share their thoughts on foods derived from somatic cell nuclear transfer clones and their offspring. This is getting really weird, and this actually perfectly fits in with the United Nations Pact for the Future, which 193 countries signed on to, which talked about forcing food rations on people. And
that explains why you have Bill Gates there, right? He wants you to eat synthetic garbage.
People watching or not. And I believe there's some funny business going on, as we see with the summer storms with the hurricanes. I think we're seeing some funny business with this. But nonetheless, in less than 36 hours, we are going to see a massive storm, and people aren't prepared. And this is what I've been shouting from the mountaintops about for so long. People are never prepared for this stuff. And then you end up with people dead in Buffalo, New York a few years ago, and people storming grocery stores, and there being shortages. It does not take long for there to be a shortage, and people are dependent on grocery stores. Being dependent on grocery stores is extraordinarily dangerous long term, but it's exactly what the World Economic Forum wants you to be in that situation. Now, again, I'm using this today to tell people, for the love of God, this is for everyone's own safety and their own families, to stock up. And it's not GMO, there's organic, and these stories regularly. I mean, we fight this stuff, my friends. This need for dependence on everything because it's so convenient. Tyranny comes under the guise of convenience, as I've said so much. And if the overall agenda is to make us dependent on their system, and grocery stores are only a couple days from complete collapse at any moment, and we also know what we saw in like 2020 when they had all this food on the shelves and suddenly there's shortages. Yet the same foods shipped from the same places in the United States were shipped to places like Mexico, where I saw myself, the toilet paper, the rice, the flour, it was there, and it was shipped a lot further than the stores inside the United States that had shortages of this. And then they found warehouses filled with food that they were purposely keeping from people. We've seen this in hurricanes in the past, in places like Puerto Rico, where they found huge facilities filled with this stuff. We know the farmland's being taken up by people like Bill Gates, and they're not using it. This is a manufactured food crisis, so that people depend on them later. We also see similar things with the Netherlands, where they try to get rid of 50% of farms. They're still trying. They're buying out farms, and that's the second top agricultural exporter country in the world. That's important. Ireland, same thing. The farmers, all that kind of stuff. People might say, well, not in my country. Any disaster, any emergency order can push you into this situation. And if you see the writing on the wall, a good investment in your life, not monetary investment, an investment in your life, the world's first money, if you will, food, is how you contain this problem in your own neighborhood.
So like everything else, though, always have good supplies. If you can't buy silver and all that, at least have supplies. So that way when shit happens, you're ready, right? You know, and if you can't cook, hey, have plenty of canned goods. You know, it doesn't take rocket science to figure that out, right? Special Rapporteur Albanese urges UN to suspend Israeli state after UNRWA headquarters demolition. You know, they're continuing to demolish all things, you know, to where pretty much so the U.S. and the Israeli state are the only ones in charge. The rest of the United Nations, well, they don't have a say in that. That means who's really running this. It's been a joke from day one. United Nations Special Rapporteur of the occupied Palestinian territories condemned the Israeli state for demolishing the United States Relief and Works Agency. Well, it shouldn't be any surprise. In a statement released on Friday, the Office of the United Nations High Consumer for Human Rights, I am horrified by the continued destruction carried out by the Israeli state without any restraint, as the United Nations international law are dismantled brick by brick before their eyes, meaning that they don't answer to them anyways. So this destruction of the building just proves even further that they can do whatever the fuck they want, because the U.S. and the Israeli state are in charge of everything. Israel's Netanyahu skips Davos over fear of arrest for Gaza war crimes. Right? Because in a place like Switzerland, yeah, the International Community Court could actually arrest him. So, like the chicken shit motherfucker that he always has been, you know, he's going to hide. Israel's President Herzog can accuse the Switzerland body of rewarding terror as Netanyahu faces allegations for war crimes. Prime Minister Netanyahu failed to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos this week amid concerns that he will face arrest in Switzerland under International Criminal Court warrant. Netanyahu was replaced at the summit by Israel's President Herzog, who traveled to Davos on Tuesday and met with German Foreign Minister Baerbock. During the meeting, Herzog criticized the absence of Israeli terrorists from the forum and called for the removal of ICC arrest warrants. So, like everything else, though, like the chicken shit fucking coward that he is, he hides behind everything. See, that's just it. It's these gutter rats, these Amalekites, they hide behind the U.S. The U.S. is their secret weapon. But like everything else, though, Russia also has weapons, and the U.S. will not be able to withhold what Russia wants to do. And so they are hiding behind the tail, between their legs as they plan their next attack for Iran, but still afraid of the repercussions of it. As you know, Iran already has ship killers provided by Russia that the U.S. will be wiped out, but that's not going to be any sweat off of Israeli state. It's just going to kill a lot of American terrorists that act on their behalf. Either way, though, they're going to suffer humiliating defeat as World War III continues, right? And we're in the times of Jacob's trouble. You already see martial law in Minneapolis and going to come to a lot of cities, right? You know, and then you see the storm of the century happening all at the same time, while others are just watching football. You know, not that it's a sin for watching football, but are only fixated on football and not really paying attention to what's going on. So here we go.
Through a brick wall energy. Like, yeah, come here. I want to kick you in the face. It'll feel good. You know, when the beat drops. So what do we got? Friday, January 23rd, 2026. What do you suppose it is that our occupied government is up to today? Waging war, preparing to wage war all around the world, from Venezuela to Greenland to Iran and beyond. It's just great, isn't it? Just what you wanted. And it seems like everybody has forgotten about Gaza. That's not cool anymore. It's not cool to be out in the streets. It's not trendy to be drawing attention to the fact that Palestinian children are being slaughtered wholesale. Right alongside Palestinian men and women and elderly people by a terroristic occupation force funded by the American taxpayer. And you would be hard-pressed to find any mainstream public figures outside of Miss Rachel who are still talking about the things that have happened there. And the things that continue to happen there. And the things that continue to happen there in the Gaza Strip, I think, is what we should be focused on tonight. Because just yesterday, Jared Kushner at Davos, right alongside his father-in-law, of course, Operation Warp Speed, Zion, Donnie Trumpenstein, they proved to the entire world that all of those AI video clips of Trump Gaza that we've shown you, where the global elite will go to sit Mai Tais poolside and bow down to golden Trump statues and fly around in private jets and have parties on top of dead kids, all of the reporting that we brought you from this desk on Don Jr. and Gila Gamliel and the plan that they signed into action in a secretive closed-door meeting in Romania, nonetheless. The plan to rebuild Gaza on the U.S. taxpayer dime, months before Donald Trump was even elected to become the 47th president. And all of that is now coming to fruition. Yesterday, at the very first meeting of Donald Trump's new so-called Board of Peace, Jared Kushner announced that he and his partners, including his father-in-law, are moving forward on their long agreed-upon plans to build Trump Gaza, or Kushner Gaza, or New Gaza, or whatever the fuck these people are going to call it. And soon we're going to see that ravaged slice of land transformed into a high-end resort city, full of hotels and villas and bars and entertainment centers, everything else that you could possibly imagine, where the richest people in the world will go to have fun and rape kids, right on top of the bones of other kids who were slaughtered to make this Zionist nightmare become a reality. Now, of course, Jared Kushner and Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, whoever else might be involved here, they're all trying to sell this plan to the world like it's some kind of a charity case. And when Kushner gave his Board of Peace speech at Davos, he talked about all of the industry that they're going to bring in. He talked about all of the education that they were going to bring. It's going to be great. And he showed off his plans, not just for New Gaza, by the way, but for New Rafah as well. Because they're going to split the Gaza Strip, and they're going to turn it into two super cities for genocidal Zionist kleptocrats. Take a look at this.
So we did a master plan. We brought in, I think, Akir Gabay, who's one of the most successful real estate developers and brilliant people I know. He's volunteered to do this, not for profit, really because of his heart. He wants to do this. And we've developed ways to redevelop Gaza. Gaza, as President Trump's been saying, has amazing potential. And this is for the people of Gaza. We've developed it into zones. In the beginning, we were toying with the idea of saying, let's build a free zone, and then we have a Hamas zone. And then we said, you know what, let's just plan for catastrophic success. Hamas signed a deal to demilitarize. That is what we're going to enforce. People ask us what our plan B is. We do not have a plan B. We have a plan. We signed an agreement. We are all committed to making that agreement work. There's a master plan. We'll be doing it in phasing. In the Middle East, they build cities like this in 2-3 million people. They build this in 3 years. And so stuff like this is very doable if we make it happen. Rafah will start with. This will show a lot of workforce housing. We think this could be done in 2-3 years. We've already started removing the rubble and doing some of the demolition. And then New Gaza. It could be a hope. It could be a destination, have a lot of industry, and really be a place that the people there can thrive, have great employment. Once this starts going, we think there should be 100% full employment and opportunity for everybody there. And we have a lot of data on what can be, but we think that this really gives the Gazan people an opportunity to live their aspirations. But it all starts with security, and it all starts with governance. Final note I'll just say on the Board of Peace, which is that all the lessons we're doing is we're basically studying the best practices from all over the world, and we're watching who does education best, who does healthcare delivery the best. All of these things are it's not secret IP. All this is IP that the Board of Peace is going to make public, and we want to encourage all the countries to be able to follow these best practices. A lot of the things that President Trump is doing in America, if they're working, we should all be copying them. If we find what's working in other countries, we should be copying them too.
Yeah.
So what the Board of Peace will have the ability to do, if we're successful with Gaza, is really show how do you do peace implementation, which is something that when we got this deal done, we didn't really find too much expertise or know-how on how to do it. So as we're creating this system, hopefully it's something that we can just document these learnings and make them available to all else who want to use them in the future. So demilitarization, this is something we're starting now. We have a new government in Gaza. This government will be working with Hamas on the demilitarization to really take the principles that were agreed to in the document to the next phase, and hopefully that will be successful. Without that, we can't rebuild. So if Hamas does not demilitarize, that will be what holds back Gaza and the people of Gaza from achieving their aspiration, and that's very important. So the next 100 days, we're going to continue to just be heads down and focused on making sure this is implemented. We continue to be focused on humanitarian aid, humanitarian shelter,
the flock shall draw them out.
to move forward. So thank you. Final point I'll just make is this is really only possible because of the work of so many people and President Trump's great leadership. But a lot of you have been asking, how can we help? So the countries have all been incredibly generous. We'll be doing the first conference where we'll announce a lot of the contributions that will be made in a couple of weeks in Washington.
You know what it means.
Sector,
suck his dick.
Investment opportunities. I know it's
gotta suck his dick
in a place like this, but we need you to come.
I don't think that a lot of people want to suck his dick.
And then finally, I'll just talk to people on the media and on the social media, which is This deal only happened because we
Yep,
worked with
they're
Israel,
preparing
we worked with
for
Turkey,
war.
we worked with Qatar, we worked with Saudi, we worked with Egypt. I mean, everyone worked together. We worked with UAE. We all worked together to make this happen. I see a lot of people trying to escalate, criticizing Israel or Israelis criticizing Turkey or Qatar. Just calm down for 30 days. I think that the war's over. Let's do our best to try working together. Our goal here is peace between Israel
Yeah,
and the
suck
Palestinian
his
people.
dick.
Everyone wants to live peacefully. Everyone wants to live with dignity. Let's put our efforts towards promoting those who are doing the work to build this up, like Ali and his committee. Let's focus on the positive stories, and let's just calm down, turn a new chapter. And if we believe that peace is possible, then peace really can be possible. So we're going to continue to work every day. We need all of your help to do it. And again, I just really want to thank President Trump for his leadership in doing this.
Suck his
This would not have
dick.
been possible without your commitment to this. Everyone thought it was impossible to end this war. You never gave up. You never stopped. Every time there was a setback, you told us to try harder. You gave us different ideas. And we've made several impossible things happen just in Gaza to date. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to make even more impossible things happen. So really thank you for your amazing leadership.
Yep, totally sucking his dick.
This is nauseating. He's trying to sell this like a pair of these new luxurious cities. And they're going to be some kind of egalitarian utopian heaven on earth for the Palestinians. And they can just live there in freedom and prosperity. They will never have to worry about anything ever again. It's a complete
Isn't that what
total lie. It's
Babylon the
absolute
Great was
bullshit.
built upon? Lies?
This isn't being done for the Palestinians. It's being done for the territorial ambitions of Israel and the Zionist cause. That's what this is all about. What they're doing here is filling in the map of Greater Israel. Do you really think that once billions or even trillions of dollars are spent on this project, that it's just going to be handed over to a bunch of Palestinians who are at this very moment still facing a genocide? Of course it isn't. By the time these plans come to fruition, no, by the time these projects even get started, there aren't going to be any Palestinians left to live there. And that's where this entire disarming component comes in. This entire plan is contingent on Hamas standing down and just giving up their arms. All of this rests on Hamas taking the word of a bunch of Jewish war criminals who have been killing their children, not just for the past 2.5 years, by the way, but for 80 years. You would have to be insane to believe that these people are just going to surrender their ability to defend themselves and to defend their people. And that they'll just turn in their guns and agree to go just live somewhere else while this project is being built and just wait for their invitation to come home. Is everyone else hearing this? I mean, it's absolutely absurd.
And like everything else, though, everyone else knows that it's absurd, and that's why the nations are angry, and they're going to come against Babylon very shortly here. You see that there is distrust everywhere. They are tired of Chump's policies. They're tired of the tariffs. They're tired of him threatening them, and they're just going to let loose. They're going to cut loose and come against Babylon after the MOTV is mandated. There will be that little time where, okay, it looks like this is going to be put off. Everybody's receiving the micro C-HIP, and everybody's falling into compliance. There's a new global governance. And then the war happens, because it won't be long after that. Once it gets close to having everybody micro C-HIP, then World War III will fully break out, and you already see that it's already happened. It's already here. Jacob's Trouble's already here, and so is the World War. Everybody knows that his ambitions for all these territories really have to do with a war against Russia and Iran. U.S. threatens to block Iraq's oil revenues if pro-Iran parties join new government. So like everything else, though, again, there have been several summit meetings where they've met with Russia, which included Iraq, Turkey, and Syria, when Bashar al-Assad was still there. But nonetheless, though, the new interim Syrian government works with Turkey and Iran, which are members of the BRICS. So they actually want to trade fairly. And they also want Russia's protection from the U.S., because the U.S. keeps on threatening them. And Iraq hasn't been stable since. None of them is stable. Nobody's safe unless Russia comes in to protect them. Especially if Iran were to fall, all the rest would continue to fall. But they want that protection too, even those that have fallen, such as Iraq and Syria. The United States reportedly warned Iraq that if it could block the country's access to its oil revenues held at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York if political factions linked to Iran are included in the next Iraqi government. This threat forms part of U.S. President Trump's renewed maximum pressure campaign aimed at weakening Iran through expanded economic sanctions, including restrictions on Iran's oil exports. Development came following meddlesome remarks by Chump, claiming that the U.S. would resort to military aggression against Iran in the event of what the U.S. called the Islamic Republic's use of violence against protesters, which you know as well as I do that those were elements of ISIS put in there, brought in from the Israeli state, and that those were Israeli bullets also found, that ISIS used against governments there. So, like everything else, though, Israeli state and the U.S. have Mossad have their fingerprints all over it. Massive fleet headed to Iran. The U.S. president renewed his threats against Tehran, warning a lot of ships are headed to the region. Washington is closely watching the situation in Iran, as U.S. President Chump said, apparently reviewing his threats of using military force against the Islamic Republic. Iran has been hit by mass protests lately. So they think that that dismantled the government. And really, truly, though, they all unite and they've found the culprits. The U.S. president repeatedly threatened Iran with possible military action, telling protesters that help was on the way. Remember that? We have a massive fleet headed in that direction, and maybe we don't have to use it. We have a lot of ships headed in that direction just in case, Chump told the reporters while speaking with reporters aboard Air Force One. So like everything else, though, we're going to hit them. We're going to hit them hard. He's still keeping up the rhetoric. Families fear detainees as U.S. moves Islamic State prisoners out of northeast Syria. They're bringing them into Iraq to hopefully invade Iran. Rights groups raise concerns for safety of men, women, and children held in camps and prisons after SDF relinquished control. Earlier this week, U.S. Central Command said that it transferred 150 ISIS members from a facility in Hasaka province to Iraq, adding that thousands more could follow. Ultimately, up to 7,000 ISIS detainees will be transferred from Syria to Iraq-controlled facilities. The announcement comes as the Syrian army took control of Al-Hol camp, which holds about 24,000 people, mostly women and children, including about 14,500 Syrians and almost 3,000 Iraqis. Syrian government forces took control of Al-Shadeh prison earlier this week. So, like everything else, though, of course raising concerns because the U.S. does what it did best. It abandoned the Kurds. How the YPG separatist dream finally died. The group's rapid downfall was driven by overconfidence in the foreign support and underestimation of the Syrian state's resolve. Well, like everything else, though, of course, because they had a friend in the U.S., because that friend has been so good, they wouldn't tell you things like, oh, well, if you try to overthrow the government, Bashar al-Assad, you'll have American support. Well, they didn't. They played their role in it, for sure, but it was handed over to ISIS instead of them, because obviously Hayat al-Shem was the one that won, aka Turkey. So they don't need the Kurds anymore. You're dismissed. Initially, President al-Jalani's strategy was not one of confrontation. The government engaged in numerous rounds of talks offering the YPG a path to integration into the Syrian state army, a move aimed at unifying the country and beginning the arduous process of reconstruction. But the YPG perceived these initiatives as signs of weakness rather than a genuine offer for sustainable peace. This misrepresentation was dangerously amplified by confluence of external factors. Open support from Israeli state coupled with political cover from Kurdish authorities in Iraq created this illusion of invulnerability for YPG leaders. So basically, they were suckered because guess what? You've been dismissed. You can go home now. Oh wait, you ain't got a home. Well, you either integrate or you get destroyed. That's what you get for signing a deal with Babylon, right? They drank the juice. They drank Babylon's juice, and now, pretty much so, they are, being dismantled and dismissed. The U.S. just simply doesn't need them anymore. So like everything else, though, we're at a time where the end is speaking. And, well, World War III is around the corner, as well as Jacob's trouble is already here, and everything's going to intensify, as Apostle Tahar has already put it. So like everything else, though, we're to keep a watch on what's going to happen. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 1. I will stand at my guard post and station myself on the tower. Meaning that you're going to be watching the news. You're going to be watching to see what events take place. And we'll keep watch to see what he will say to me. What answer I will give as a spokesman when I am reproved. Pretty much linking everything up to the scriptures, right? Then the Most High Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and engrave it plainly on clay tablets, so that the one who reads it will run. Meaning run to repent, running to get right. For the vision is yet for the appointed future time. It hurries towards the goal of fulfillment. It will not fail. Even though it delays, wait patiently for it, because it will certainly come. It will not delay. So like everything else, though, we know that Yahweh Shai is coming back to gather his elect. And we want to make sure that we're righteous and ready to stand before him. Because we're going to have to stand before him on one side or the other. We want to stand by in righteousness because we fear him. Look at this proud one. His soul's not right within him. Talking about Esau the Edomites. But the righteous will live by his faith in the true power. Moreover, wine is treacherous and betrays this arrogant man. Talking about Esau Edom. And then you have the spokesperson for Babylon, the king of Babylon. You can see the arrogance in Donald Chump. So he does not stay at home. His appetite is like Sheol. He is like death, never satisfied, and gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all peoples as if he owns them. Does that not sound like Donald Trump in particularly? And all the Babylonians for that matter, because they own the world, right? Will not, with all these victims of his creed, will not take a taunting song against him. And in mocking derision against him, and you see a mockery that they made of him at the World Economic Forum. Say, woe, judgment is coming to him that increases that of which is not his. How long will he possess it? And woe to him that makes himself wealthy with loans. So like everything else, though, the creditors are getting tired of him. They're tired of it. Will your creditors not rise up suddenly, and those who collect from you awaken? Then you will become plunder for them. So they're going to let loose very soon, and like everything else, though, you're not going to like how they collect. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that I want to say, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kakadash, Wa Abab Babal. Brakathum, the hopeful elect. Repent while you still have time. Shalom.